Hey everybody, this is Allie, and thank you for joining me. Right now I wanted to talk about how I add rain to an image in Photoshop using custom brushes. So just to show you, this is what my final image looks like. And one of the things that I found is when so anyway, I did shoot this on a rainy-ish day, but it wasn't raining when I took the image. But I figured it should be showing some rain since they've got an umbrella. So I'll go online and I'll kind of study the color tones and things like I'll Google, images and say, well, let me see rainy images and just try to get an idea. And so rainy images are in the blue tones, especially in the shadows, and they have less saturation. So the first thing I did was I added, let me just kill all these other layers. The first thing I did was to add a hue and saturation layer and just brought the saturation down a little bit. The next thing I did was added a curves layer and added some blue to it. And if you go into a curves layer, you'll see, now if you're not used to using curves, curves is awesome, but it starts off, it's just going to affect the full image contrast. RGB is where you can affect your colors. So red, green, blue. Blue is opposite yellow. Green is opposite magenta. Red is opposite, oh my God, I'm having a mental block. I know what red's opposite, I just can't remember right now. So blue is opposite yellow. So if I push up the blue, you'll see that if I was to pull this down, it would turn it more yellow, but by pulling it up, it's pushing in blue. The other thing to understand about curves is the bottom, on the left side, you're affecting your shadows, and on the right side, you're affecting your highlights. So if you forget that, you just look and here it's dark and here it's light. So that helps me get the general tone of the image. So what I'm going to do now is add a blank layer, and I'm going to start adding some rain. So I've got my basic rain brush, my small rain brush. So I'm going to start with my basic rain brush, and I've got it on white. And if I just Command Z, you can see the basic rain brush just starts off as up and down. So I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And I think my rain would look better if it was falling in the direction like it's on the umbrella. So I'm going to grab my angle jitter here, my angle direction. I'm going to put it at 40%. So my angle is 52 degrees. And now, and actually that brush is still too small, so I'm going to bring it up. There we go. So that's looking a little too fake. The first thing you can do to make things look a little more real is work with your blend modes, and I'm going to change this to overlay, and that makes it really soft. I can change it to, let me see, overlay, soft light, overlay, soft light. I think I'm going to go with soft light. Another thing you could do is you could add a blur to this. It's just a brush. And the idea of the brushes is to get you most of the way there. So I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to call this one large rain, smaller rain. And I've got another brush that I made. And honestly, the only reason I did this is just to make it easy, but the smaller rain brush is really just an adaptation from the large rain brush. I think I was at around 52%, and I'm just gonna kind of fill in a little bit of rain with this guy, and he's actually bigger than I want, so I'm gonna bring his size way down and just fill in. Ooh. And sometimes you just want to play with your brush. Here we go. I really am not gonna fill in where the umbrella is because I don't think it makes sense. And again, I'm going to change my blend mode to overlay. Okay. So the rain looks good. And one thing I don't like, I'm going to go select the two, Command G, call it rain. I'm going to add a mask. I'm going to grab a regular soft brush, and I'm just going to remove a little bit of rain from in front of his face. That's all, just from in front of his face. And there we go. That looks a little better. What's going on here? Which brush did I pick? Okay, now it's good. There we go. So the next thing I wanted to do was add a little fog. So I'm going to hit another layers brush. I'm going to call it fog and go back to my brushes. And I'm going to go to my dust brushes and I'm going to grab this soft dust and just kind of, and that is probably not a good brush. So I'm going to go Command G and I'm going to try this at like 30% because I think 100% was too much. Okay. So this is the Dust Sharp and it's a little bit too sharp, but what I can do now is I can just grab a filter and blur it. Because remember what I was saying, you don't look for your brushes to be the end, oops, I hit the wrong one, to be the end all be all for you. You're going to have to expect that you're going to be making changes to things. So let's just give that a really pretty good blur. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and I'm still going to pull the opacity down a little bit. So that just kind of puts a little foggy thing. Another way that I'll add fog is I will grab my gradient adjustment layer, leaving it on white, hit reverse, reflected, and kind of give it the right angle that I want, and that looks way too much right now, and then I just bring it way, 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 way down. And that's a nice way to frame them in a foggy look. You can play with your blend mode afterwards and see if you change it a little bit. Screen mode can make it nice. This is white, it's not much of a difference. So then the last thing I want to do, because I actually like this fog better, so I'm going to just leave this fog and kill the brush fog. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add drops, because when it rains, you're going to get droplets on your umbrella. It's just how it works. And when I started doing this, I was like, if I don't have droplets, I just feel like it's not going to be natural. So I created they're stamped brushes. I created a long one, a fat one, a regular one, and they're huge. So I'm going to grab my droplet. You can see it's on its own layer. And I'm thinking a little droplet would live like right there. And I'm going to make an even smaller droplet and put it right there. And actually I'm at a 30% opacity, which is working really nicely for these guys. I'm going to put a droplet at a 50% opacity, make it a little larger. And if you want your droplets, since there's 3 different sizes, so I'm just going to take my fat droplet, make him smaller. And pop him right there. And now see, he's at 50%, so he came out a little bit bright. But I could just go Command Z, put him at 40%. And he's probably coming out kind of bright. Yeah, there we go. 40% looks good. And I'm going to throw another droplet. See, they barely show when they're in front of the lighter color, but a little teeny little droplet right here. And something you can also do is I'm going to add my own layer. And I'm going to go back to my long droplet and just show you you're not stuck with these droplets exactly the way they look. So I can add this droplet here and then do a Command T, and with something this small you want to zoom in to the droplet. And if I hold Shift, because I'm in the new 2019 Photoshop, I can kind of stretch this one out, Command 0, and make one big long droplet. Because he's on his own layer, I can drop the opacity a little bit and maybe send it to overlay, and yeah, that looks good. So the last thing I did for this was I added one last curves layer. I always like to finish everything off with a curves layer, and so I'm going to just put a little contrast into the image. I'm going to the little S. This is pretty standard. Just add a small S, and I'm going to reset for a second. Yeah, I think I'm just going to pull it down. I'm not going to add highlights. And that looks good. So we've got some rain, we've got some droplets, we've got a little fog. I think we've added a lot more ambiance to the image. This is where we started. And that's where it ends. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, just put them in the comments. Thank you.